All right, let's get to our first story today. As we start out, we continue our coverage of the debate over lowering the blood alcohol content here in the state of Utah. Right now it sits at 0.08, a bill passed by lawmakers rather easily, is now waiting for the governor's signature, and that bill would lower the limit from 0.08 to 0.05. And a lot of people are expressing concern. There was a rally up at the state capitol today, and we'll get more into that a little bit later on in the show. But I want to go back and have a conversation right now with Representative Norm Thurston. He's a Republican out of Provo. He is the sponsor of the bill, and he answered some questions today on UtahPolicy.com about debunking the myths behind lowering the DUI level here in the state from 0.08 to 0.05. And I spoke with Representative Thurston a while ago on our Newsmaker line and asked him, first of all, if he's surprised by the reaction that he is getting, not only here in the state, but around the country, to his bill.
I knew that there would be some people who would not want to engage in the dialogue and discuss the evidence and understand what's really going on. And reality is the primary source of any opposition is coming from people who are engaged in the alcohol business, people who sell alcohol and who profit from selling alcohol. Those are the people that are raising most of the interest, and they're also the ones that are putting most of the money into buying full-page ads and things like that, flying people out here to testify from Washington. So I guess it's to be expected.
Have you heard from your constituents? And if so, what are they saying to you?
Yeah, my constituents in large numbers are calling me saying, what can I do to help to get the governor to sign it? So that's as of today, it's probably somewhere in the ballpark of 10 to 1 from my constituents, which is rare because, as you know, you've been doing this a long time, people almost never call you when they're pleased. They almost always call you when they're upset or send emails. So the fact that I've got people sending emails telling me, hey, we've heard that the governor might not sign the bill. What can we do to get him to sign the bill? That's remarkable.
There was an article today in UtahPolicy.com where you talk about debunking some of the myths surrounding this debate. You mentioned that Senator DeBacchus and others have chosen to ignore the facts and publish misleading and false statements about this. Let's go through some of these and let you respond to them. First of all, and I've had an attorney on the show within the last couple of weeks talking about this as well. His concern was that the bill really goes after the small fish, and we should be going after the biggest abusers when it comes to alcohol and driving, and not people who, as he described, as small fish. How would you respond to that?
Yeah, so it's the first part of that. That's the misstatement that this bill only goes after the small fish. This bill is based on evidence that shows that you get a decrease in drinking and driving at all levels of BAC. It discourages low levels of BAC from driving, and it discourages high levels of BAC from driving. And the reason why is because it sends the message in our state, we don't want you to drink and drive. So everybody thinks in advance before they go to the restaurant and say, I'm going to go to the restaurant and have wine with dinner tonight, or I'm going to go to the bar and have a few. How am I going to get home? And that doesn't matter. It apparently doesn't matter. You see the impact all the way up the scale from people who have one drink to people who have 10, that they're less likely to go to the bar or the restaurant and drive home. They're more likely to have a plan, another way to get home safely, designated driver, Uber, taxi, Lyft, whatever. So it does help on all points of the spectrum in terms of BAC.
Okay, so if you have, let's say a couple wants to go out and have a nice dinner and maybe a glass of wine with dinner or two, are you saying that couple, one of them should become a designated driver, or both of them should plan on having someone drive them home? Because even that one glass of wine, you may be an impaired driver.
Right, so here's the thing. So nobody should plan to drink and drive. That should not be your game plan. So a couple goes out for dinner, either one of them should be a designated driver, or they should say, hey, we're going to be taking Uber to get home, or we're going to call a taxi, or we're going to go on tracks, or whatever we're going to do. So that's the plan. And the reason why is that even though oftentimes people will go to a bar and they'll say, well, I'm just going to have one drink and I'll be fine. Legally, maybe, but is that a good idea? And the answer is no, because after one drink, sometimes people feel confident. They say, you know what, that drink really didn't impact me hardly at all. I think I'll have another and I'll still be okay to drive. And now you're starting to get into that gray area, even after one, really, but certainly at two, of should I really be driving, or do I have an increased risk? And the reality is, technically, the first drink creates some impairment, so people shouldn't do that. Legally, at 0.05, that's where we draw the cutoff. That's where we're going to actually give you grief on the side of the road is at 0.05. So, yeah, there is that margin underneath, But my preference would be, let's just send a message, don't drink and drive, don't take your chances, but there is some flexibility under .05 for people to make some decisions there.
I have said on the show before, and I know you'll probably disagree with me on this, I understand the effort to make driving safe on the highways, and I think we all would agree with it. My concern is I think this goes a little too far. Is there that much of a difference between .08 and .05?
Yeah, so at .05, just to give you, put it in perspective, a simple number, people seem to like numbers, they can conceptualize this. When you compare .05 to 0, so this is don't drink or go to .05, you are 7 times more likely to be involved in a single car fatality. In other words, taking away all of the other factors that are out there, you're 7 times more likely to get in a crash that kills you, the person driving the car. So yes, .05 is not just, it's just a little bit, it's no big deal. People have difficulty steering, they have difficulty responding to emergency situations, they have difficulty tracking objects with their eyes tend not to be able to focus as well. So there's a lot of scientific evidence that shows that by .05, you shouldn't be driving, and definitely by .06, .07, .08, those intermediate ranges, those risks just increase exponentially all the way up. They keep going up from there, but that range from .05 to .08 is a significant impairment zone.
And where is that information coming from? You say this is based on scientific evidence. Where is that information coming from?
So that's coming from studies that were conducted by the National Highway Transportation Safety Administration and the CDC, National Institutes of Health. So there's links to all of those studies on my website, normthurston.com/DUI. People can go there. They can look at the studies section. They're all listed. You can pull them up, read them. They're just delightful reading for anybody who loves statistics. It's wonderful.
All right, that is our conversation with State Representative Norm Thurston. When we come back, we'll continue that conversation, ask him questions about the impact it may have on Utah's image, and if he's concerned about that. That's coming up next, right here on the Rod Arquette Show, Utah's Talk Radio 105.9 KNRS. Listen, and you'll know. Welcome back to the Rod Arquette Show. Great to have you with us on this Friday, as it is each and every day, as you work your way home into the weekend with 3 hours of news, opinion, and conversation. Don't forget, coming up in the 5 o'clock hour, we open up the phones to you for Thank Rod It's Friday, and you can talk about whatever is on your mind today. A lot to get to. We've talked a lot. Real interesting stuff this week, so we'll get your reaction to that and let you talk about whatever you'd like to talk about. That's in the 5 o'clock hour. All right, a rally held up at the state capitol today. I understand about 100 people showed up. It was put together by the Salt Lake Area Restaurant Association, Ski Utah, the American Beverage Council, everybody urging the governor to veto House Bill 155. That's the bill sponsored by Representative Norm Thurston, a Republican out of Provo, that would lower the blood alcohol content here in the state of Utah if you drive from .08 to .05. We're talking with Representative Thurston on our Newsmaker line right now. Representative Thurston, there are a lot of people out there who feel this bill will stop responsible adults from legally enjoying a drink with dinner. Are you trying to prevent people from drinking?
No, absolutely not. In fact, I really don't care. If people want to drink at a restaurant, that's fine with me. I had very little to say or to care about the Zion Curtain bill. In fact, I think it was all just kind of a big tempest in a teapot because we're just kind of moving the target. It's great. It probably moves in the right direction. But do I care if people drink with dinner? No, that's absolutely fine. My concern is when people go out and they choose to drink in a bar, at a club, or with dinner, I want them to make a different decision about how they're going to get home other than driving.
And you feel as a state legislature, a state lawmaker, or the state, that you have the right to tell them that. Is that your feeling?
Yeah, absolutely. So the current state law already says if you're impaired, you'll be arrested. So what this says is let's lower that number from .08 to .05 so that the message that's tied to impairment isn't don't get drunk and drive, it's don't drink and drive. So that message is out there. People will respond. People will be safer. Reality is I don't think we're going to put any more people in jail than we already would have, but we will get a significant number of people to choose to not drive after they drink. And that's the great thing about this bill is that it changes the social behavior because we send that message that you shouldn't drink and drive.
Well, speaking of social behavior, Representative, what about the social behavior of talking on your cell phone and driving? I mean, that may lead to more accidents than even DUI. Why not focus your attention there instead of on the drinking and driving issue, or is that something down the road you are going to take a look at?
Oh, sure. So here's those things. So when I sat down with Highway Patrol, I said, let's look at what's causing deaths on our highway. And they had a list. They had a fairly long list, actually. So we looked through the list and we said, which of these things do we have a policy that is known to work? Because that's what we want to do. So, for example, with texting and driving or cell phone talking and driving, is there a policy that will actually get people to stop doing it? And the answer is no, we don't have a policy. Now, people will say, well, if we had massive fines or if we had massive enforcement. But even those, there's no evidence to help us guide us as policymakers as to know what should we do that will actually get people to stop texting and driving or stop talking on their cell phones while they drive. As you know, texting and driving is illegal in the state of Utah, but it happens all the time. People have just not gotten the message that you shouldn't be doing it, and they still do it. I am all ears. If somebody says, hey, I've got a policy that there is evidence that shows that it will get people to stop doing this and it will result in fewer crashes, injuries, and deaths, I'll sponsor that bill. But that's what we did with alcohol. We found a policy that was shown by evidence to reduce people's behavior, resulting in lower crashes, injuries, and deaths. So it's a good policy. It's based on evidence.
Are you worried? And some people have made this argument to me, and I've heard this, Representative Thurston, about the impact on tourism. I don't think it's going to have much of an impact, to be real honest, because our tourism numbers continue to climb. And yes, we have weird liquor laws here in the state of Utah. Other states have weird liquor laws as well, but it doesn't seem to stop people from coming here. But let me ask you, are you concerned at all about the perception that Utah may get with this bill?
No, and so that's an interesting. I mean, that's a great question, but I am not worried about the perception because it's not an alcohol perception. When we look at the data, nationwide surveys, all Americans, 63% think that .05 or lower is the correct standard. So they're not going to look at Utah and say, well, that's a weird state. They've done what I think they should do. That's not it. And furthermore, people don't even come here to drink, let alone drink and drive. I don't think anybody comes to Utah with the expectation of, because of our lax enforcement laws, that they can get away with drinking and driving in Utah. We're number one in the nation in terms of low deaths from alcohol, and that's a reputation that we're proud of. And I think people should consider that. If you're considering whether to go to Utah or to Colorado, you should say, well, am I going to be more likely to get killed by a drunk driver in Utah or Colorado or Las Vegas or wherever you're planning to go? If you care at all about that, and again, many people don't care at all, but if you do care at all, Utah still looks like a pretty great place because our roads are safer, and this bill will make those roads even safer. Final
question for you, sir, and I've appreciated this conversation. I mentioned this. I had a lady call me about this on the show as well. We've had quite a discussion about this, as you can imagine, Representative Thurston.
I can imagine, yes.
But she raised a point, and I raised a point as well. I've lived in the state since the late 70s, so I wasn't born and raised here in the state, but I've lived here for quite some time. I enjoy the state. And I pointed out that I think if there's one issue that tends to drive a wedge between people who are members of the predominant religion and those who aren't, it is the issue of alcohol laws. Does this drive that wedge deeper, do you think?
That's a great question as well. It's not a Mormon, non-Mormon issue. I don't think that it's Mormon doctrine to not drink and drive. And if it is, it's certainly not an exclusive deal. I think that there are plenty of people out there, atheists, non-believers, Muslims, whatever, who would say, yeah, people shouldn't drink and drive. So I don't think so. It only seems to me that the people who are looking to be offended or who are looking for that hook, they say, oh, this is just the Mormon church pushing their way on us. I'll just tell you straight up, I have not had one conversation from anybody, from church leadership, from church hierarchy, from church PR. They have not even contacted me on this bill at all. We're not even, as far as I know, I'm assuming that they were aware because they're aware of everything, but I don't think that they have had any input or influence on the success or failure of this bill all the way along.
All right, State Representative Norton Thurston. We haven't had a chance to talk to him since last fall when he first introduced this. An update on where he stands. Like I said, he is trying to debunk some of the myths out there that he claims people like State Senator Jim DeBacchus and the Salt Lake Area Restaurant Association and the American Beverage Institute are putting out there concerning this effort to lower the blood alcohol content level here in the state of Utah. You be picked up for DUI. Currently, it's at .08. His bill would lower it to 0.05, passed by the legislature. The governor says he is taking a look at it, even though we had him on the show, was it last Friday, I think, Ray, where he kind of, I thought he indicated most likely he is going to sign this into law. There was a protest up at the state capitol about this today. About 100 people showed up. All right, more coming up on the Rod Arquette Chair. There is another law or another bill that could become law if the governor signs it. People are trying to get him to veto. We'll talk about that as well next. Thank Rod, it's Friday, right here on Utah's Talk Radio 105.9 KNRS. Listen and you'll know.
The presidential election